Today on CityCast Philly, it's the Friday News Roundup. We're talking about why just one, Philly school board nomination is still in limbo. And I'm not kidding, but there's a new plan to move the Greyhound bus station again for a third time in a year. It's Friday, May 3rd. I'm Trinae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Joining me this week is Carly Citron, Philadelphia Bureau Chief for Chalkbeat Philadelphia. Hi, Carly.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. And Mayor Rindy, investigative reporter at Billy Penn. Hey, Mayor.
Hey, Trinae.
Before we get into the news of the week, I like to start our Friday News Roundups with an icebreaker. So this week, it was reported that Wawa recently started building a new location in our state's capital, Harrisburg, which is in Central PA. Now, for folks from the Commonwealth, Central PA is in the unofficial territory of its competitor, Sheetz. So, Carly and Mayor, my question for y'all is, who is better, Wawa or Sheetz?
For me, it's Wawa all the way, no question. There's no conversation to be had. The hoagies are top notch. The drink selection is above and beyond. The coffee is unstoppable. It's Wawa.
I love that. Mayor?
I gotta say, I'm not from PA, and I've been to a Sheetz maybe twice in my life, so I don't have a great basis for comparison. Wawa seemed fine to me, I like those little machines where you can specify how much is on your sandwich and all that. So I'd say, sure, I'm great with Wawa. No shade on Sheetz, but I guess I'd have to go with Wawa.
So in our Hey Philly newsletter, we asked, I think a lot of people say Sheetz is better. But our Hey Philly reader, Ryan L., wrote, had to weigh in as I often travel for work in a factory town where Sheetz is the only place to get food after night shifts. And he lives in Philly. So in his expert opinion, Sheetz has better hot food while Wawa has far superior cold food. And he says the Gobbler is the only exception to this rule, simple as Wawa has better coffee too, for what it's worth. I'm Team Wawa all the way. I haven't been to a Sheetz, so maybe I'll make some new weekend plans and go visit a Sheetz. All right, let's get into the news of the week. Carly, I've been seeing so many headlines lately about the drama over the nomination of one Philadelphia school board candidate, Joyce Wilkerson, the former School Reform Commission chair and former school board president. Last month, your colleague Dale Mezzacappa, senior reporter at Chalkbeat, she came on Friday News Roundup to explain just how all of this works. Mayor Sherrell Parker nominates 9 candidates, and then City Council makes a final decision. But what's been happening over the past few weeks is sort of a back and forth over Wilkerson's nomination. Carly, can you just catch us up? What's the latest on where Wilkerson stands in this process?
Yeah, this whole process has been wild and I think unprecedented in a lot of ways. The latest is basically Mayor Parker has essentially gone over the heads of City Council and asked board member Wilkerson to stay serving on the board. Essentially, City Council was supposed to bring her nomination up for a hearing in the committee of a whole and then to the whole body. They were, supposed to vote on it, but they never did. They just kept pulling her nomination from the agenda. And so Mayor Parker said, I'm just going to ask her to stay anyway. So earlier this week, all the board members were sworn in at City Hall, and board member Wilkerson was not officially sworn in because the assumption is she's already serving on the board. So we're in a bit of a gray area here where we're not sure if there's going to be any kind of legal challenge and how much power the Home Rule Charter's line that says, with the advice and consent of City Council, how much power that line holds, or whether Mayor Parker does have the power to just say, I've asked her to stay on and she's going to stay on, and this is my school board.
Well, Carly, how does the council feel about Wilkerson?
That is such an interesting question. I think it really varies between council members, and no one has given pretty much publicly a definitive reason for not supporting her. The line we've been getting from Council President Kenyatta Johnson and Education Committee Chair Isaiah Thomas is that she just doesn't have the support of enough council members. I know that Council Member Thomas has said he's got a mosaic of issues with Wilkerson, a lot of it that she represents kind of an old guard or kind of a time when Thomas feels people weren't held accountable or decisions were made that he doesn't support. And so I think there's an element of that in Joyce's nomination. We also heard from Councilmember Kendra Brooks, who told us even in her days when she was an education activist, Board Member Wilkerson was never, quote, a beloved friend of her and her fellow activists. So there are a lot of kind of varying feelings. We also heard from council members who told us they don't really have a strong feeling about her either way, but they're sticking with their leadership. And so there's kind of a chess game happening between these members of reasons to not move on her nomination.
So as you said, Parker is telling Wilkerson, hey, just stay. What's been Mayor Parker's response since council has not confirmed her nomination?
A couple interesting things have happened. So Parker's response was primarily, I want you to stay on. You are my pick. You are my nominee. I stand behind you. I stand behind all 9 of my nominations. And I would like you to continue to serve, which Board Member Wilkerson accepted and has been, excited to continue on the board. I think what was also interesting was the following day after this letter was issued, Mayor Parker appeared before City Council at the district's budget hearing and gave this really impassioned speech to Council where she said, I don't want to fight. I didn't usurp a process. I think we should just work together going forward. And I think it took Council a little bit aback. And I think afterwards, talking to council members, the idea that the mayor kind of pulled a chess move on her part, as one advocate told us, and then came back to them and said, I mean, no disrespect, and I think we should work together. I think that caught them a little off guard, and we'll see how willing council is to kind of follow her down that path going forward.
Is this showing a sort of political tug of war between council and the mayor?
Yeah, Trinity, I think you're exactly right. I think this is a really interesting test of power for both the mayor and for city council. It wasn't until 2018 that city council even got the power to have advice and consent over school board nominees. And at the same time, appointing school board nominees is the most direct control and impact that the mayor can have over education in the city. And so this is just such an important linchpin in education and in issues for kids. And so I think a lot of people want to have their voices heard and want to be the one to make the decision. And so, this kind of push and pull and back and forth and who's going to be the one to control the nominations, I think we're going to see that that's going to have impacts, especially throughout the budget process going forward.
And like you mentioned, in the backdrop was city budget negotiations. So, Carly, what are the implications of this nomination dispute?
I mean, I think there's a lot at stake here. A budget is, it's at the same time a statement of moral values and priorities for the city. It is the way we're going to spend our money for the next year. And so I think council members have a lot of power here. The mayor has already proposed her budget, and now council members get to decide, how are we going to go about this horse trading process of getting things for our districts and making sure that all the programs are funded. And schools are a big part of that, right? Like Mayor Parker has a lot of things that she wants for schools. She wants year-round school. She wants to shift the percentage of property tax revenue that goes towards the district. She has a lot of asks. And so I think during this negotiation process throughout the month of May over the budget, we're going to see a lot of conversations about, okay, you want this, well, I want this. And that's kind of how things are going to shake down, I think.
You can read more from Carly by clicking the link in our show notes. More news of the week after the break. All right. Another news story that's had some bumpy roads, get it? Is the location for Philly's intercity bus terminal. We've seen this bus station that serves Greyhound, Megabus, and other carriers move so many times from Market Street downtown to Spring Garden and Northern Liberties. Mayor, this story just keeps rolling. That's another bus pun there. What's the new plan for this bus station?
Yeah, this one just keeps going and going, and it's really unclear how it's going to play out. The new idea is to put the bus terminal, I guess you could call it, on Second Street in Old City in a parking garage that's run by the Philadelphia Parking Authority. Have buses for those carriers drop off people there, pick them up, and then head out to New York and all those other destinations.
Okay, so can you just remind us, though, what's been happening at the Northern Liberty station? Why isn't that one working as well for travelers?
Yeah, and it's not even really a station. There used to be a bus station near Chinatown, which got shut down last year. But after that, the buses started picking up just on the curb. So these buses are picking up from the curb on Spring Garden Street. There's a small ticket office, but it's not open late, and passengers don't really know about it. For a while, there wasn't a bathroom there, although they did install a kind of mobile bathroom unit a block away recently. So people are just really standing outside for hours sometimes, waiting for their bus to come. Also, people use Uber a lot because it's a sort of out of the way location. And so there are rideshare vehicles coming through, parking in the parking lot of a small business center that's there, which has caused all kinds of disruptions. So there are a lot of complaints about that location. Everyone recognizes it's not ideal. Even the city has said, this is not a great place. It doesn't provide dignity for bus riders. It's been clear for a while that they wanted to move out of this sort of curbside setup, but it's been difficult for them to figure out how to do that.
Right. I remember you coming on to the show and talking about also the complaints from neighbors in Northern Liberties. What's been the response from the neighbors in Old City about this new potential plan?
Well, they're pretty upset. A group of them started a new neighbors group,
Wow.
and they created a petition on change.org where they're like, we were blindsided by this. No one has officially notified us. We sort of heard about this idea secondhand. It's a very old, pretty narrow street for large buses to come through on. There's a daycare nearby. There's a federal government building with Homeland Security in it and other offices across the street. It's a pretty quiet, sort of well-off residential area, kind of on one side. On the other side, it's Old City, which is more of a kind of a tourist district. So they say this is totally unsuitable, and they have hired lawyers to fight it. So
Wow.
it's going to be an experience watching this play out.
Do we know when this will start to roll out?
It's hard to tell. The city officials, the department that handles this, has been sort of not as communicative about this project as it is about a lot of other things it
Hmm.
does. And we keep hearing different things, and they're unofficial announcements. So they have said that they want to stop having buses pick up on Spring Garden Street in Northern Liberties by Labor Day. They said that a little while ago in a sort of a different context. So presumably that would mean that the buses would move to Second Street or some other location by the beginning of September. But they also say, oh, the timeline's not clear and the buses aren't moving for now. So who knows really?
Okay, but I just want to know, where are the bathrooms?
Yeah, that's a good question. So apparently, this parking garage was actually designed for tour buses back in the 70s to let them
Okay.
come to the city's historic district. And I'm told it has bathrooms. It has either a waiting area or some space that can be converted into a waiting area, and it has around a dozen large parking spaces or berths for full-size buses. From a sort of technical standpoint, it's probably actually not a bad location to serve as a bus terminal.
And how will officials measure the success of this plan? Having it in this Old City parking garage.
Well, there's definitely a sense that this is yet another temporary location, maybe a better temporary location, more indoors rather than on the street, but they don't see it as the permanent bus station. Everybody wants a bus station in a centrally located place with good transit connections. So somewhere around 30th Street,
Right, that makes
where
sense.
buses have picked up in the
Right.
past. So Councilman Mark Squilla and other people have said, this is a temporary location. I guess the idea is that it would be a good one and it would provide shelter for travelers and other amenities. It would be a little bit closer to a real bus station, but definitely not the final bus station. How long it would be the bus station, that's another question. It could be years until they can figure out how to make 30th Street work. So it's sort of possibly a long-term temporary solution.
Why is this so hard to find a places for the buses to go?
That's the question that everyone asks. Every time I write an article, all the comments on social media and so on are like, why is this so hard? Just put it at 30th Street. But it is pretty hard because they would have to figure out a building to put it in. They'd have to find a parking garage over there. And there's all kinds of development happening around 30th Street. It's kind of complicated. Another issue is that the old station closed because Greyhound was purchased by another company, I think the company that owns Flixbus, and they're trying to cut costs. They were like, why should we run a bus station and have all these employees when we could just pick up on the curb and it's cheaper for us? And we can also sell off this bus station. So are they going to want to start ponying up more money to support the operation or possibly construction of a true bus station at 30th Street? Those negotiations are also difficult. So it's a lot harder than I think some people realize to make it happen.
You can read more from Mayor by clicking the link in our show notes. All right, that was Mayor Rendy, investigative reporter at Billy Penn, and Carly Citron, Philadelphia Bureau Chief for Chalkbeat. Thank you both so much for joining me on CityCast Philly.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
It's time for the tip of the week, where we share a life hack for living in Philly. The city is still looking for lifeguards to staff public pools this summer. According to Axios Philadelphia, Philly needs to fill about 400 of these positions to open all of the pools. But the city received just 250 applications. To try to attract more people, the city is offering cash. Submit your application by May 15th, and you could get a $500 bonus. If you have a tip of the week, we'd love to hear from you too. Call or text us at 215-259-8170. That's all for this week on CityCast Philly. Our executive producer is Laura Benshoff. Our producer is Abby Fritz. Our Hey Philly newsletter editor is Asha Prahar. And our host is me, Trinae Nuri. Music is by Philly's own Interminable, with additional music from All the Kimonos and James Weldon. If you enjoyed this episode, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter, Hey Philly. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend and be safe, y'all. Bye.